Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that'll have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. New Mutants, The New Mutants, number 3 from 1983 by Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod. Now, this is the last issue of New Mutants before the return of the X-Men. So, I have a playlist. I have several playlists, actually. I have an X-Men playlist. I have a New Mutants playlist, and I have an X Universe playlist. Now, I have covering everything from the beginning of the Chris Claremont era, and I've covered um, all the issues like Avengers Annual 10, Marvel Fanfare 1 through 4. I am all the way to New Mutants. I'm sorry, Uncanny X-Men 166. Everything is done in reading order. So in the X universe, it's a blend of everything. So everything is in the X universe from the beginning. Otherwise, if you're only interested in X-Men, just go to the X-Men. If you're interested in New Mutants, just go to the New Mutants site. But the X universe has everything in order. So feel free to check it out. So we've got this cover here. We've got Danny Moonstar, Mirage. She's called Psyche during this time, but I think her name changes. So we've got something going on, some kind of shadowy figure behind her, and we've got the fallen New Mutants next to her. So, all right, here we go. So the X-Men are sort of heading back to Earth. Um, and so this is, like I said, the final issue before the X-Men come back here. So we got Danny in bed, and she's awoken by the thunder. And she sees the face of the Brood next to her. Now, if you're following the X-Men, you know that Professor Xavier is impregnated with a Brood embryo, and that's sort of what's been tormenting Danny since last issue here. So she sees the face of the Brood, and she grabs her knife here. She says, "It's the monster that attacked me in the danger room. I'm sure of it. It has come back to finish the job." That was covered in the previous issue. There's no sign of it. It's not even there, she thinks. Normally, as you well know, I sort of read along, but Chris Claremont sticks so many words. It'll take me an hour to go through some of these scripts. So sometimes I just have to make an executive decision and just sort of tell you kind of what they're thinking of rather than read every word. So she's been on edge and thinks she's been imagining all this. So we get a little bit of her origin here. It's from that Jim Shooter days where every issue is somebody's first here. And so her power is to pull the people's worst fears from their soul and make them appear to be real. She can't control that, which is why her grandfather sent her to Professor Xavier's school. But she thinks that that power is now being used against her. And so we got the title of our story, Nightmare, starring the New Mutants. And out from the window comes this shadow creature and says, "If that is so, Daniel Moonstar, then surely you have nothing to fear, for a phantom, a spirit form, cannot harm you." And she screams here, love, 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 the screen tones being applied here. So we got our credits here with Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod. Chris Claremont is the writer. Bob McLeod is the penciler. I started with New Mutants graphic novel. So And of course, this lets us know the story takes place between issues 166 and 167 of X-Men. I have, of course, already covered issue 166, and 167 will be next. So I'm swapping back and forth between X-Men and New Mutants. It's just we had to cover a couple of stuff in New Mutants before because um, this stuff, I believe issue 167 had already come out, but this issue is just sort of filling in the gap here, which is why it is being told to us. So the monster grabs her, and you can see she sticks it with the knife, and it goes through, and she realizes that it can touch her, it can grab her, and she can't do it any harm. So she's like, she has to warn the others, and you can see here, Roberto, Shan, Professor Xavier, everyone get up. There's a monster in the house, and when she goes through here, she sees someone has shot Sunspot, and is she dead from a drug overdose? That would almost look. Sam is dead from the avalanche, so it's their worst fears. And of course, Rain is being burned alive at the stake by religious fanatics here. So these are their biggest fears here. And here comes that creature again. And the creature says, "Marvelous sights, are they not, all slain by their most primal fear and most anguished memory, as you are about to be?" And Danny says, "The monster, if I can reach Rain's window, it's a 2-story drop, but I've survived worse." And she goes, it was too fast. It caught me." And the creature's like, "Why struggle, little Cheyenne? There's no escape for one who knows your innermost thoughts." And she's like, "It's crushing me. It hurts, but I won't give up here." And when she takes off the mask, it is the demon bear, by the way. That is going to sort of run through until we get to the climax when Bill Sienkiewicz takes over. And so the bear says, "Surprise, Danielle? Can it be that after all these years you've forgotten me?" And of course she says, "By the Great Spirit, the bear who murdered my parents, come at last to kill me too." And she screams, "No!" And that was all a nightmare. And in comes Sunspot and Cannonball. And she's like, "Sam, Roberto, you're alive." And oh my god, sometimes I get confused. Cannonball says, "Why shouldn't we be?" And Sunspot says, "We heard you scream, Danny. What happened? What's wrong?" And here you can see the despair. "I don't know, Berto. I think I'm losing my mind." So soon everyone's in her room here. And Sunspot says, "I thought my Uncle Jowl told scary ghost stories, but compared to you, Danny, he's an amateur." And she's like, grrr, she's got the thermometer in her mouth here. And Professor Xavier is taking her pulse here. And Rain asks, is Danielle ill, Professor?" And Xavier says, "Not physically, Rain. Pulse and respiration are normal, and I'll wager her temperature is the same." And so she says, "What about my mind, Professor? Am I going crazy?" And Cannonball says, "Hey, kid, don't talk like that." And Xavier says, "Sam is right. You had a bad dream." And she says, "But it seems so real." And Xavier says, "Look around you. Everyone is alive and well. Nothing happened. Now try to get some rest. We'll talk further in the morning." So Danny, of course, is a little bothered that no one seems to believe her, like she did all this herself. And she says, "He's wrong. Someone tried to kill me. I'm sure of it." And she goes, And I figure the dream means they're not going to give up. If they came for me tonight, I better be ready for them. And so she pulls out her knife and she goes, "My knife," and you can see the blood. "That gunk of the blade, it must have come from the bear creature when I stabbed him. It's impossible, but dream or no dream, he exists." So she gets up with the knife and she's gonna go tell the professor. She keeps thinking here, "I'm the one he wants, but so long as I'm in the house, a part of the mutants, all of us are in danger." And she keeps saying, or she keeps thinking here, "If only I knew why. What makes me special?" And she goes, "The light on the professor's study. He's still up. Great. Oh, sounds like he's on the phone." And of course, he's calling Moira. He says, "My apologies for calling at such an ungodly hour." And so, of course, we get like more exposition here. Like Moira lives in Scotland and she's human, not a mutant. Of course, he's talking about her, and Professor Xavier says, "I'm concerned about Danielle Moonstar. Her recent behavior indicates marked and I fear increasing psychopathic tendencies, extreme paranoia, schizophrenia, advanced, possibly beyond my ability to scope." And she's like, "Oh no. Spirits of my ancestors protect me. No, he thinks I'm insane." And she goes, "Maybe I am. My mutant power never shows anything good. Maybe because I don't want it to. Maybe I show the wicked, evil, hurtful sides of people because I'm wicked, hurtful, and evil. If that's true, I shouldn't be allowed to live." So she's looking at the knife here. Moira, of course, says, "Nope, that's rubbish. I had her examined last summer." And Xavier says, "The facts speak for themselves." And so she says, "What about a direct mind scan? You're the telepath, man, not I. Have you peered inside her brain to confirm your diagnosis?" And he says, "No, not yet." "Then bother me when you've done so." And she hangs up on him. And so Banshee comes from behind her and says, "You're in a short fuse today, darling." And she says, "That man can be so exasperating here." So it turns out she's of course a little perturbed because of the son of Xavier that he does not know he has. Of course, we discovered last issue Xavier has a son. So of course she's thinking of Proteus, her own son, and I have covered the Proteus saga. Check out the playlist. I actually have that in an individual playlist, so check that out. Um, I'm a huge X-Men fan. If you can't believe, particularly this era, the Chris Claremont era of X-Men. So she's wondering why she's the one that has to save that kid. Sean offers to marry her, and they'll have children of their own. And she says, "Suppose they're monsters like Proteus." And Banshee says, "He was conceived in an act of violence and hatred. Ours will come from love. They'll be beautiful." And she's like, "I love you, Sean. I'd like to believe that, but I dare not take the risk." And so Banshee, of course, is thinking of her ex-husband, Moira's ex-husband. She's like, "If you weren't dead already, I would kill you." And now we've got Ilyana, Colossus's younger sister, who is with them in Muir Isle. She's being watched by Moira while the New Mutants get settled. And she was doing like some kind of prayer. She says it was a song taught to her by Ororo. Uh, she promised her best friend she'd honor her memory on her birthday, and that seemed the best way to do it. And Banshee thinks that it is Kitty Pryde that he must mean because today would have been her birthday. Banshee says he almost guarantees that the X-Men are okay because they've been through worse, so that they're fine. And so she's of course having some thoughts here. "I wasn't thinking about here and now, Mr. Cassidy, but of the demonic limbo that was my home for half my life." Of course, that was in X-Men 160, I believe. where Belasco, where she basically was stuck in limbo, and what it seemed to be just a few seconds turned out to be like 7 years or so. And she says the X-Men were there too. Some died at Belasco's hand, and some died at hers. So she she's been through a lot. So the next morning, you can see Danielle is taking a swim here. You can see that Danny's wearing like some sort of sweatshirt, and she's like, "How can you stand it, Danny? The water must be freezing." And Danny says, she says to her, "It's like summer." And of course, Danny grew up in Colorado, where Shan is more tropical, from Vietnam here, and she says it's like summer, and Shan says, "Not to me, but you'll get used to it here." So, and she says the cold clears her head. Basically, you can see there's a lot of talking. There's a lot. Chris Claremont just loves to ramp up the drama, and so they're having a hot beverage here. And Danny says the professor thinks I'm loony, and Shan asks, "Are you? Are you?" And Danny says, "I'm scared." And she says, "Ever since I arrived, something has been out to get me. First, I figured the idea was to drive me away, make me quit the New Mutants. When I didn't, things got serious. My life's on the line, Shan, and I had a horrible feeling the professor is involved." And so, in the danger room, we can see, oh my goodness gracious, Cannonball. I forgot his code name here. And Xavier's like, "How you feel?" And he's like, you can see here, he's a little dazed here. And he goes, "I thought I was invulnerable when I was blasted, but I guess I was wrong. Did I hit it hard?" And he says, "The readings were off the scale," says Xavier. And so they go ahead and test more stuff here. And you can see Sam actually hits one of the rings here. And Xavier even goes, "Ouch." And he says, "I'm glad I measured the boy's ability to take punishment before beginning his training regimen." He says, "Evidently, a minimum speed is necessary for Sam to maintain flight. I'll have to respace the hoops to accommodate that." So, and here you see Sam here, and Professor's like, "Let's start again here." So, and so he's shaving and thinking, but you can see Karma is possessing him. This is Karma's figure here. Remember, when she takes over, they can't remember anything, and suddenly back at it again. And so he continues right where he left off, and he's like, "The lather's cold. What happened to me?" So it says here, "Meet us in the boathouse here." And he's like, "The mirror, did I write that?" And he's like, "I don't remember. I blacked out." And he's like, "Only one person can do that." So here she tells him about the professor and the knife, and Cannonball says, "We supposed to be ghosts then?" He says, and she says, "Won't you admit that even to the possibility that I'm right, that somebody wants to get rid of me any way they can?" And he says, "Why should I? Give me a reason." And he says, "You can't, because there isn't. If Xavier wants you out of here, like you're hinting, why doesn't he simply expel you? He's a doctor, Danny. If he says you're sick, could be he knows what he's talking about." And then he's like, "Holy cow." And then he closes the door. On the other hand, and Shan is like, "Sam, what's wrong? What did you see?" And he says, "You don't want to know." And then he goes, she says in French, "My God, it's fantastic. It's impossible. No, I don't know French, but I know Spanish, and it is a romantic language, so that's how I knew this was my God, and it's fantastic." Um, and Rain is like, "It's not real, is it?" And the smell, the air, it smells awful. Now, of course, if you have been following the X-Men, you know what this is here. And if you haven't, that let me go back here. That would be where the brood, the live. So, and Danny's like, the professor is in the house all alone. And Karma says, how can we reach him? Illusion or no, that alien landscape masks the house. If we try to cross the lawn, we are sure to get lost. And Sam says, for all we know, we're not even on Earth. Suppose we've been kidnapped. And so they're going to take the tunnels that lead back into the mansion here. She says she's been exploring them, so that's how she knew about them. Of course, Sunspot says, didn't the professor say they were off limits? To which she just says, yup. So, and so down comes Cannonball, and she's going to go look, and suddenly you can see that she's been grabbed here. Now, of course, you should know what's grabbing her. Before that, of course, she lets us know that, Xavier either is the one doing this or he's also a victim. So we see that she's been grabbed, and of course, we see a brood. Now, if you've never heard me go off on the brood, you're about to. It's okay, just ignore me. Just give me a little moment to rant. I've ranted and raved all the other ones. I am not a huge fan of the brood insect design. I love the head. I'm not like I said, this and that. I would have preferred something more humanoid, rather than this insectoid thing. I know that they were trying to get the alien, Marvel's version of aliens, but I like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the insect creature here. So, of course, Cannonball can't believe it. And Danny says, this is the monster that ambushed me in the danger room. And the brood says, you are no match for my power, hatchlings. Leave this one to me, and I will leave you to your lives. Karma says never, and she tries to take over, but its very thoughts, the very fiber of its being, so alien, so evil, it is more than I can bear. And so Danny tries to use her powers, but it doesn't work. And the brood says, what a pity, little human, for that means you are quite helpless. Rain transforms into Wolfsbane and says, that's what you say, demon. The New Mutants say different. And it says here, Wolfsbane has never felt more scared, but that doesn't stop her. So she's being brave. And you can see here, bites the brood. And the brood says, pain, but that cannot be. And Cannonball says, what do you know? We surprised the bozo. Come on, Bobby, let's nail Ugly while it's still off balance. And so off goes Cannonball here. And you see Wolfsbane kind of helping him along too. And they're hitting the brood here. And here they discover that the brood has disappeared. There's nothing there. And Sam thinks that it perhaps disintegrated. And Bobby makes a joke that maybe it beamed up to the Enterprise. And Karma asks Danny if she's okay, and she says yes, but she's got a huge headache. And Rain says, look, the tunnel has changed. So, and Sunspot says that it looks like it's organic, sort of like Jonah and the Whale, says Sam. And Rain says, everything's still normal behind us. Can we not run away? And Sunspot says no, because they could never live with the fact that they abandoned the professor. Rain is scared, and Bobby tells her, come on, I'll lead. You hold my hand. So, of course, she has a little bit of a crush on Sunspot. They notice that the closer they get to the mansion, the more complete the metamorphosis is. There we go. Karma wonders why the creature, knowing that they're untrained, hasn't taken them out here, and suddenly you can see Sunspot is grabbed, and Rain's like, "Hang on, I'll save you," but he uses his power and rips out of where he was. And then here comes the Brood again. Now, people, did you agree with me with that insect? Like the description of them, but I mean, like it's a bug with a great head. Again, I just think that another design could have. I could talk for an hour about how much I don't like the design, but it is what it is, people. So I guess I should get over it. But I'm just not a big fan of the Brood. But anyway, the Brood grabs her here, and suddenly these other creatures are coming after them here. And she's like, "My mind, it's burning. It hurts so much." And she begins to scream. And she screams so hard that her throat becomes raw. And then when she comes to, we see the Brood right there. And she thinks here, "The demons wrap me up," and out loud, as a spider does its prey, she's like, "My thoughts," and she says, "are an open book to me, hatchling. But how? How come you haven't killed me? You sure tried hard enough in the danger room." And the Brood says, "True, but I've had a better idea. Behold, the fate I have prepared for you and your companions." And then he's shown the New Mutants turning into Broods. And then he realizes she gets the headaches whenever she tries to use her power. And the Brood says, "You've been doing so quite a bit today." And she says, "No, I haven't, unless you've been making me." And she's like, "Get out of my mind, demon." And so what's been happening is the Brood has been using her own power against her and against everybody. But here come the New Mutants. And again, I really like the head. I like the head of the Brood so much. Just not the rest here. But again, I apologize. I go off in these tangents. So only a couple of pages left. And Bobby goes, "This is a professor's study. Where is he? What has the demon done with him?" And Sam's like, "Let's trash this sucker first, Bobby. Then we'll make it talk." And then he says, "They haven't a prayer as long as the alien can use me to create any setting or monsters it wants. But maybe that's its weak spot. Without my power to sustain it, even the alien will cease to exist." And Danny says, "Shan, don't question or argue. Just possess me now." And so she does here. And she goes, "an inspired move, but it backfires. As Shan establishes a mind link with Danny, the Brood Queen reaches across the link. And now she goes to attack Sunspot. And he's like, "Forgive me." And he, you can see here, hits her hard. And Sam kind of, or Bobby kind of figured out what's happening. And he asks, "Where'd it go?" And Sam says, "Darned if I know. It's vanished like it did back in the tunnel here." So, of course, it's using more of the illusions. And Danny goes, "My head's throbbing. The alien's drawing more and more power. I can't take much more of this, and neither can the others. The alien's winning. Sam, I'm the key. KO me and the alien disappears for good. It's our only hope." So he's going to go hit her, and the Brood tries to stop her, and then pow, knocks her down. And it turns out that she was correct. And Xavier says, "Mutants, explain yourselves. What is the meaning of this?" And Bobby's like, "Professor Xavier, talk fast. Someone, I think we're in a lot of trouble here." So we get to the last page here. So Danny's sitting outside, and Bobby comes to her. And the professor mind scanned them, and he does believe the story now. And Bobby says, "We won today's battle, and with him," meaning Professor Xavier, "leading us, we'll win the war too. If I were the creature, I'd start running. They don't know that it is Xavier. So, and I'm not spoiling anything because that was covered in our previous issue of X-Men. So, again, I'm reading order. So, Danny says, it's a long way from beaten, Berto. I can sense it out in the dark somewhere, waiting to be back. She's thinking it'd be better if she left because the professor doesn't even know if he could shield her. And Bobby says, we're a team and we stick together no matter what. So, and she's like, thanks. I needed that, says Danny. And so she says, the Brood Queen knows so much about us, aspects, potential of my power I never dreamed existed. Things I figure only the professor would be aware of. Berto, suppose he's involved. He's under the aliens' control. And Bobby says, nobody's that good an actor. Look, a shooting star. I've never been one so big or bright. Consider it a good omen. If you say so, Berto. We've been with the professor so short a time. How do we know what's he really like? We'll cross that river when we get to it, okay? Hey, you guys, Magnum's on. You watching it with us or what? So, and so Xavier students begin to relax, unaware that in a matter of minutes, their predecessors, the Uncanny X-Men, are about to make a spectacular return home. Now, here, real quick, it says a tale already told in X-Men 167. But guess what? We're doing this in reading order. So that is actually next. So, New Mutants number 3 from 1983. Chris Claremont, writer. Bob McLeod, penciler. Up next will be actually X-Men 167. Like and subscribe. Thanks for listening. And sorry this is so long. It's just, Claremont's writing. It is good. It is wordy, but it's worth it. Thanks for listening.